welcome to the last chapter of the actual model. This time we will paint the head and the neck. We have some color matching to do with the rest of the body, but we will do that as the final step. I hope you enjoyed the progress so far. I know it's a lot of video material, but yeah, I hope to give you the most detailed insight of how I work. Alright, thanks for that, and thanks for your support. Okay, so here we are with the head, just blue tacked on a small wood cube. You can see I've added like a middle line of feathers with green stuff after I've primed the head, because I wasn't really happy with like how the pieces fit together. Okay, so I've mixed a tone here using red beige and rucksack tan, about half-half, and a small bit of black to mix a tone, and you can just test it here on a piece of the model to see if it works tonal wise. I think it's fine. We already applied like a little bit of the highlight there, but yeah, let's add a little bit more of the red beige to be sure it's not too yellow in the end. Okay, because we're hitting the highlight area here, we'll also add some white to the mix. Okay, I think color-wise that looks good. Okay, we have the head here, and we're now doing the other side, so we take some of the dark blue, and we'll use that in a fairly heavy consistency, so somewhere between, let's say, heavy and medium layer, so it covers with one or two layers of paint. Okay, and now plenty of the beige tone, and we'll also use that in a fairly heavy consistency. We might need to mix also here a bit more. That was a little too much black, actually quite a bit too much, so okay, should be good. You can see here with the water in the back of the brush, it's a little too translucent here, so we'll just add more of the base color. Okay, and with a bit of the blue on the brush, I'm just refreshing blue here on the upper side, and now just with the wet brush I'm blending the two together. Okay. So yeah, I think for like the basic button wet blending, that already gives us a nice indication of where to place the colors and the highlights later on. So we have a nice natural transition that should match with the rest. And for the top part of the head, I will continue with the Rucksack 10 and a bit of black. The Rucksack 10 by itself is actually quite nice because it's really quite saturated, it has a nice coverage, so I just added a bit of black to gray it down a bit because by its own it's very intense. So I'm using that here for the middle part, because it's quite an interesting part. If you pay close attention, it's really hard to see whether it's skull or actually covered with skin, especially this part here. So I want to have like a transition from that beak part in the front to like also to have like a little blue here to the side. And one thing that we have to really keep in mind is that the head is still the focus point, but with all that stuff that is already going on the model itself, we need to play a little bit here with the saturation and using the Rucksack 10 in a more or less almost pure form, because it's warmer than the rest of the colors that we've used so far. I think that can already help quite a bit to draw some attention later on to the head. Okay, so I will just continue with the base color to make sure it's in place everywhere, and I'll use some purple for the tongue, but also just a base tone. We might do that now on cam so you see the different tonalities that we get. So using some light turquoise and purple in like a medium layer consistency. We'll just introduce that here on the tongue, and with a bit of water you can already pull it out a bit. So yeah, that intense color contrast between the yellow and the purple really helps to get some attention there. We'll also introduce like an interesting shift in tones here to the top with some of the scurvy green. Same here. Okay, so I will just continue with the rest of the base colors off cam, and we'll be back with the base colors in place. Okay. Alright, so here we are with the base color. I also introduced a little bit of a pink here on the lower side by just mixing some red and wet blending that with the base color. On the other side I've also continued with the highlights to establish the look, and yeah, I think it already looks pretty dramatic. So yeah, we will tackle the other side now. For this part, it's really important to maximize the contrast, also work very clean. So this here is really just the rough start of a color placement. Okay, so you can also see the palette turned a bit messy because I proceeded with the highlights. So here we have our mix of Rucksack 10 from P3 and a little bit of black. We'll just put a bit of white in our brush and start with a loader brush. turned out nice, but here we see that like a little line, and yeah, we don't want that. Okay, nice. Contrast-wise, this is right where we want to go, so really maximum. Consistency-wise, the paint in the back of the brush is like a light glaze. And the white is just pure. Okay, so I'll continue here. Oops, just a little bit too much white. You can see now with the glaze in the back of the brush, I can just place that here to bring up the surface completely. So you can see I've remixed some of the base Bond color on the palette because it dried out a little, and we will continue with the main highlight on the top. It's quite nice to see we have the highlight from the loaded brush to one side here, and now we have to make the same to the other side. You can see we already have like a very nice transition. We can see if we need to adjust the brightness of it later on, but we will wait until it's dry. You can see on the top we still need to increase the intensity of the highlight to the one side, so just using a bit thinner, like a light glaze of the base tone and some white on the tip. Also, just with a bit more white, we can just place that here on the top. Okay, we let that dry. So yeah, I think we can also show some of that in the speed up, because it's really pretty much the same for all the light parts here. Okay, here it's almost blue, so just a bit of the blue base color also has a light glaze. Okay, there's a little bit too much white on the tip, so I just need some of the blue base tone. I'm glazing that now. Okay. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear where we're going, and you can really see the power of the loader brush for parts like that. So I will continue with the highlights, and we'll be back once with like the loader brush parts done. Okay. Alright, so you can see I've continued with the highlights here with the loader brush on the bone parts, and also here a little bit with some purple highlights here in the corner of the mouth. And yeah, you can see we gained a lot of definition here in those areas. We still need to work on the tongue for sure, and also here adjust the highlights a little. And here on the top you can see actually quite nice the difference between the two sides here. I also introduced two circular highlights here, and here on the top we just have a smooth gradient. And I actually like those highlights here on the side, and I actually like those two highlights there, so we will have to introduce the same here. So some of the base tone and a fairly light consistency, so like a medium glaze, and some white. And I'm just placing them here. Okay. And now with a bit more of the base color in the mix. So a very light consistency. Okay, so we're using that here just to carefully glaze over the sides of the highlight. Okay, yeah, very nice. So if you look now from the top, it looks more equal on both sides, and I really like that little addition of extra volume there. So yeah, for the tongue, we will use some of the purple that we've mixed, add a bit more red, like a very nice dark tulip tone, and white on the tip of the brush. So we don't want the highlight to be just next to this highlight that we have on that side. This way the tongue will look even more glossy. So we will place the highlight here on that bit on the front. So I'm talking about paint dried, so I'm just refreshing the paint here. A bit more white. Okay, already quite nice. Okay, so that looks already pretty good. I think now I want to do like with the mixed tone here, just a few dots towards the edge to give it a little bit of texture. So again, some purple. And we'll do the same with some of the scrubby green to the front of the tongue. Okay, nice. So for the tongue we will also introduce a little bit of gloss. So you can see here in the very back of the palette I've placed some of the Scale 75 Intense Violet, and we will place that just in here. Clean the brush and pull it out. You have to be careful because it's super intense, as you can see, so just taking some water on the back of the brush and pushing it here into the recess. Okay, very cool. So a little here in the shadow. Okay, now I'm mixing it with the base color here of the tongue. And just blending that out a little. Okay, so we'll let that dry, and while it dries we can just also put a wash here of pure black. See, consistency wise quite thin, so like actually more like a heavy glaze, but we will take plenty of it and really wash those feathers here like we did with the large feathers on the leg. I'm not painting the small ones in the front. I think I want to do those later on with a little bit more opaque paint. So I will also put the purple ink on the other side of the tongue, and yeah, then we'll be back for some detail work here on the feathers and also the non-metal bits, and just detailing the skull overall a little bit. Okay. With some details. Also very important detail are the eyes, so let's start with them. I think I would like them in the end to be something also like the black pearls that we have on the rest of the model, but as they are the eyes we need to paint them a little bit more intricate. So I'm just taking some of the pink tone that we have for the highlight. I'm just trying to place that in here. Now a bit of the light turquoise. I'm also just trying to have like a little bit on the brush, not that it, if I spill it, it doesn't run all over the model. I'm trying to hit the other side of the eyeball. Okay. Just touch the upper lid a bit. We'll fix that in a second. So now we're adding some pure white for the highlight. Yeah, and I really like how they sparkle out of the darker hole. So just some of the base tone here with the blue. Okay. Alright, before we start with the small metallic bits here and the feathers, I want to introduce like a transition here towards the front of the beak and also have like a difference in gloss. So I've added some Winsor & Newton brown ink here on the palette, and I'm using it in like a medium glaze consistency. And I'm applying it here to the front and just pulling it towards the beak. Okay, I'll do the same on the other side. And you can see I don't want it to really pool in the front, so I just pulled off the last bit here of the last bit of the drop off with the dry brush. So we continue with the second layer. Okay, make sure that that layer is entirely dry. Okay, a bit more of the ink. Okay, I will just continue until I have like a very nice transition, also gloss wise, and well, I think it should be just another 1 or 2 layers, and then we can introduce like also a bit of black here to the front. Alright, so you can see now it looks really fantastic. I have just the gloss effect that I wanted to achieve here on the front bit of the beak. And yeah, we'll just add a little bit of black on the very front here. Yeah, okay, I think that's already okay. So for the non-metal bits, I also want to have like magical floating non-metal like we did on the other parts. So I'm just starting here to the front with like a slightly more, slightly greener tone. And you can see I'm trying to use the side of the brush to not stain the other, to not stain the beak. Okay, and a bit more of the scrofulous brown here. Just using a bit of purple to tone it down here. And a little bit more of the scrofulous brown, just here for the last bit of the flame. Okay, so just sketch in here the highlights on that. So just mixed from the scrofulous brown and some white, I just mixed the highlight tone here. And with some pure white, I'm placing like the maximum highlights. Okay, and with a bit of like a light green, just that secondary highlight here. Oh wait, it's not the secondary highlight, it's only not as bright. Okay, so yeah, I think you got where this goes. It's just like tedious placing of highlights, always on the upper corner of each object. So every swirl gets its own little dot of highlight. I will just continue like that. I'll also put the base colors here already on the small flame, and yeah, we'll be back for the little highlights here on the flames. Okay, so I've placed the base color, and I've also added already some highlights here on that side. So I'm mixing some of the scrofulous brown with some of the scruffy green. Okay, consistency wise, we're working with some like a heavy glaze on the back of the brush and some white to the tip. And we'll just push that highlight here. Okay, again. Okay, and for the upper part we will just take some of the scrofulous brown, and some white on the tip, and the clean brush, we're feathering that out. So again, scrofulous brown in the back of the brush, white on the tip. To the other side, just with some of the scrofulous brown and some water. I'm just fading that out here. Again with some white. Okay, and some of that green, also in a light glaze consistency here to pull the two colors a bit more together. Okay, and here for the lower part, scurvy green and white on the tip, and just place that not 100% clean, so just with some of the premixed highlight tone. Okay, some small highlights here. Okay, so just here along the edge. Okay, and on the other side it turned out a little bit too big actually, so just want to soften that out and pull the light over the surface. I think that looks pretty good so far. So for the little gem on here, just using a bit of black. And yeah, we should not paint over the edge, so to correct that bit here. Okay, and here on that small gem, just a small highlight on the top. And we'll just take some of the blue here for the lower side. Okay, and a bit thinner. Just glazing here over the very dark edge. Okay. Okay, now that looks nice. I really like the okay, so I really like the look. It looks really reflective, and it catches also quite a bit of the attention with the green on there and the play with the yellow. So for the next step, we need some of the dark blue that we've remixed here, and we'll apply that here on the feather bits. And blue here. And a bit of the scurvy green with white in something like a between medium and light layer consistency. And we'll use that while this here dries. We can use that here. Lower two, and we can also start working here on these feathers in the back. For the feathers in the back, I also want to introduce like a different shade that I've not introduced on other feathers on the model. So I want to introduce some somewhat golden feathers. So I tried out the look here on that side. And I think that will also help us to get the attention where it belongs to. So yeah, we will work with a little bit of orange here on the top. The orange is mixed from Scrofulous brown, red, and the flat red, and a tiny bit actually of the light turquoise. So you can see I really like the intensity of that tone. But yeah, we will just play a little with the tones here. So I'm adding more red here to the side and creating burgundy tone. And introducing it here to the top. I also want to get like a transition from like the super bright spot here of the head plate, and I want to get those sparkly bits also here on the top. That's also why like the golden feathers can be a really nice touch. Also a strong purple here. and also to contrast a little green in here. So also for the contrast, just a little bit of the scurvy green and white here. And I just glazed that on the top half of the feather. Okay. I really like the start so far. Right here a little bit darker on the lower side. Here for the top feathers we're introducing more of the orange tones, created from the mix of the flat red, a bit of the light turquoise, and the scrofulous brown. Okay, so yeah, I think there's not so much interesting stuff going on. I mean, overall we want to focus like the wordplay here with the base tones, but you saw here how I placed them. So yeah, I think I will just place the base tones and we'll be back for the highlights. Alright, so you can see I've continued a little with the highlights on the back of the feathers, and also did the small non-metal emblem. So yeah, let's continue with the highlights. You can see on the palette, I've rearranged the palette. The other one dried out overnight. So yeah, let's mix first the purple from Model Color Flat Red and Light Turquoise. Okay, and so a bit of the dark blue from Light Turquoise and some black. Darker here to the side. Okay, so let's start with the somewhat golden feathers on top. So I'm mixing some of the purple that we've just mixed with some of the scrofulous brown. And we'll first use that here to get like a somewhat golden reflex. See, consistency wise we're working with quite an opaque paint, so somewhere between a medium and a light base tone. And a bit of the pure scrofulous brown with some white on the tip of the brush. And just some of the pure scrofulous brown. I'm just softening that out here a bit. Okay, so it already looks quite nice on this side, so I have to turn it around. And same procedure. So Okay, already quite nice. Just here on the side there's like the highlight went a little bit over the edge here. And for those feathers, or I don't know, actually they're not sculpted in the same way than the feathers, so I also want the look to be a bit different, somewhere between the feathers and the little quills on the rest. So I will also introduce a few lines like we did on the feathers. And I'm just mixing also a highlight tone here from the Scrofulous brown and some white. And a bit with the lighter brown for the darker side here of the feathers. And I'm just correcting that here with the very dark. Just correcting here that line of the highlights with some of the green. Okay, so you can see I've also added some of the scurvy green here in the back of the palette. Just forgot that. Mixing that with a bit of black. Adding some white here to the side. So I'll also add a few like different colored lines like we did on the other wings as well. Also here on these small feathers, but only a little bit, not too much. Okay, and with a bit of the light scurvy green, I'm just pushing the contrast here a little on the ones on the front. Cleaning the brush. Feathering that out. And when it's still wet, just putting a bit of white here on the tip. Okay, so we also need to highlight the upper bright green feather, and I mixed some of the Scrofulous brown with some of the scurvy green to get an intense green, and I'm just adding some white on the tip of the brush. Okay, yeah, very nice and intense. And to the other side. And to the other side I want to add like more yellow to the color mix. More of the Scrofulous brown. Okay, so sadly the camera was out of focus, but yeah, I mean here on this side our highlight will be a bit slightly more yellow. and then with some of the Scrofulous brown and some white in the tip. Okay, yeah, that's already really cool from the intensity. I think just you can see these here line up really perfectly, but the two feathers here on the top just need like a little dab of highlight to get like a nice continuous flow of contrast. So I'm mixing some of the light turquoise with some white. Consistency wise, something quite opaque, so we have control. And also with white and some of the Scrofulous brown in the back. Okay, that works already pretty cool. I highlighted that with a mixture of purple, some of the flat red, and some of the Scrofulous brown. Okay, we're giving that a second to dry, and while it dries, we can just grab some strong tone here on the palette, directly out of the pot, and we will just apply that here on the lower side of the feathers. Clean the brush and pull it out here, so it still gathers in the recesses, but it's not really all that strong. Okay, so with that dry, and we'll be back with hopefully the feathers done, and yeah, the next thing will be the highlights here on his long nasty throat. Alright, so the strong tone dried, and it really gives us quite a nice definition of depth, and also like an overall blending of the feathers as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with the look so far. So let's continue with that part here of the throat. So first we're using some black. And we're using that in something like a mid base layer color. And we use that to outline the little necklace here. Okay, now we have like a very nice dark outline. For the next step, we will mix a bit more of the red here into our brown, and also a bit more of the scrofulous brown to create an intense orange tone. And we'll place that here on each of those little pebbles. And also here on the half moon. With some of the details, like the half moon here, you have to decide whether or not you highlight actually the upper edge of it. Whether you highlight the upper edge of it or not. This one here. And here in our case, in this case here with the half moon, I definitely want to highlight the upper edge as well. But for the belt, for example, I will not highlight the sides of the belt. So now I'm just taking some of the pure scrofulous brown. I'm just doing slightly smaller dots here. And also a small pure white dot on top. Okay. For the half moon, we'll also do the same. So need some scrofulous brown and some white to get like the reflex on the lower side. So I'm just cleaning it off to the side here with some black and some of the orange. And some pure white here for the upper edge. Okay, some of the scrofulous brown, a bit thinner than before. I'm just trying to highlight here the upper edge. Yeah, just like that. And it's quite nice because it gives the whole thing a more three-dimensional look. I'm just correcting that bit here with some black. I wouldn't pay like all that the same attention to all the single straps on a model like that, but because we're here like on the center of attention, also something like the small detail here needs to be very nicely painted. So I'm just mixed like a light gray. I'm just putting that here on the side of the strap. Using the same gray and some white on the tip of the brush to get that nice highlight from the top. Okay, and I'm feathering it out here with a clean brush. Okay, and here this one also just a bit of the gray here to one side. Here you see I took a little bit of white for the top highlight. Now I'm mixing a lighter gray here to connect those two a little bit intensity wise. Okay. For these very small, they're very small and very hard to spot, but they're actually like small buttons on there. First placing the highlights with pure white. Okay. Here for the other side of the lower part here, I will introduce like a little bit of like a blue-gray. Just trying to figure around. Okay. So yeah, it's really nice. It gives quite a lot of definition there, and yeah, I mean we can see that I have to correct here the outlines here and also there to the side, but we can do that while we do our highlighting work. Speaking of which, that's actually something we can start now. So guess what technique we'll be using? We will be using a loaded brush for the first highlights. So I loaded the back of the brush with some of the dark blue that I've mixed previously, and we will use that here on the top of each of the fold. And I'm also mixing a bit of the highlight tone here on the palette. Consistency wise, we're working with something like a medium glaze. Okay, and a bit darker. As you can see, I'm also highlighting here. I'm also highlighting here on the top of that second volume here on the throat. I'm just trying to imagine if the light would come from the top what parts would be hit, and we have one line of highlights going around here and one on the top. Okay. Again, I'm softening that out with a slightly darker glaze. Okay, so I will continue like that with the blue highlights here on the top. I think you got where I'm going with that. Soft that out and put it back here for the transition area with the skin tone and also the pink parts here in the front. Okay. Okay, so here we are with the blue highlights in place on the top, and now we have to do the transition bit here with the throat. So we have to remix the color for the throat, and that was red beige from Model Color, some of the Rucksack 10. And some black. Looks okay, but I think it's slightly more yellow, so just adding a bit more of the red beige. Okay, I think now it looks good. So first I will take that, also quite opaque, so see here, it's between medium and heavy. I will just use that here to correct the line here. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so let's continue with our highlights. So I will mix some of the tone. We've just mix and add some white here. So a bit more of the Rucksack 10. And I'm first starting with like a slightly darker tone here. And I'm using that in, let's say, something like a heavy glaze. Okay, and a bit wider. So you can see I've sketched in the highlights quite a bit brighter. So in the next step we will just soft them out here a bit. Okay, and I don't want them to be like too visible as single lines of highlights, so I'm just taking a very thin glaze of the darker highlight tone and I'm just glazing that here over the whole area. Just to connect the highlights a bit. Okay, and we'll also take a bit of the base color here to the side and mix it with some of our blue. The blue base tone that we've mixed from light turquoise and black. And we need that tone for the transition area here. Okay, and with some white on the tip of the brush, I'm just blending it here over the surface to get also a transition with these tones. Okay, so I've continued a little with the highlights, and one thing that we need to do is we still need to bring up the highlights here on the pink part. As you can see, I've started here with those already, and also back here. So we just have to do the ones here in the middle, and we will just use some of our pre-mixed beige skin tone and add a bit of red here, the flat red, to get like a nice pink. And consistency wise, we're using a thin tone, so something like a medium glaze, and some white on the tip. And we'll first do like the white dots, pure highlight. Softening those out with the pink in the back of the brush. Okay, with a bit of the pink here, also as a light glaze. We're increasing the pink transition here a bit. Okay, I think that should be already good. I will glue the head in place and we'll be back to see if everything works. And yeah, then we're finished with the model so far. We just need a base and maybe some finishing details. But yeah, let's see how that looks. Okay, so now you can see the head is in place and it looks actually really cool. It's a little bit too hard to capture the giant model on cam. So you can see this is just how the head fits in place. It's really almost perfect. So what we'll just have to do is we just have to finish that off here by putting a bit of the blue, and we're using that in some like a heavy glaze tone. You just have to get like that in here. Add a bit of a highlight tone here for the very top. Blend those two here a little. I'm just glazing it with a wet brush and feathering it out a bit here on the throat. But yeah, you can see how just that little bit of color already cleans up the joint line here. I think it would be great to have a second necklace from here, something that flows here. I will also show, as a little extra feature, show the base. So we will do that now, and after that we will be back with the finished model. Okay, perfect. So now that we have the head painted, you can see that it really works well together, and I'm really happy of how I managed to control like how the viewer perceives the model. So with a lot of contrast on the head, still with all the different colorful elements that are going on. So the last thing that we will have to do is we'll have to paint the base, but we will do that in the next chapter. Alright?